Welcome to The Wealthy Healthy, the podcast and blog dedicated to inspiring better mental, physical, and financial health. I'm your host, Ricky Newton, and today's episode is the inaugural Steve Sunday installment. So, of course, that means that today, for the first time, I'm joined on the podcast by my sound engineer, web designer, bandmate, logo guy, all around dear friend Steve. How's it feel, Steve, to be on the podcast behind the mic now?
With an introduction like that, I guess it feels pretty cool. Inaugural.
Inaugural Steve Sunday.
Oh, yeah. Some big words there, Ricky.
Thank you. I took the SATs. So for anyone who missed or skipped the first episode of the podcast, Steve Sundays, it's something that we're going to do, I think, on a quarterly basis. Basically, what we're going to do with this is talk to Steve about his road to overcoming debt with a very normal starting salary. And over time, we'll actually, hopefully, get to see the improvements that Steve makes as he works to lower his expenses, increase his savings, increase his salary, decrease his debt, and so on. So in essence, these Steve Sunday episodes, we'll be using Steve as a case study. So something that I mentioned in the first episode, keep in mind that Steve has been generous enough to agree to disclose many aspects of his own financial situation for the show. So on paper, he's super similar to a lot of Americans, and I think that's going to make him a great example for really understanding the ups and downs of embarking on the path to financial freedom, again, without an inheritance or a 4-year degree, without a 6-figure software engineering salary as a starting point. So early on here in the life of the podcast, I think some of our listeners know you. I'm assuming some of them are going to be our friends.
Hello.
But yes, hello. Hi, Mom, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Some of them are going to be friends, but anyone that's coming back to old episodes, anyone who doesn't know you, maybe people who eons in the future will be listening to these podcast episodes will not know you. So give us a little bit of your background, just kind of in general, like, your family, your background, education, and then we'll kind of get into the numbers after that, but just kind of introduce yourself.
Like my age and stuff?
Yeah, go whatever you want.
Whatever comes to mind?
Yeah, whatever you want.
Okay. I am 27. I'm a 27-year-old male. What's my ASL? What's your age, sex, location?
Is that cisgender?
I'm 27. I moved here from New Jersey. My schooling background, I graduated high school. I did a bunch of classes at a community college. Then I took some online courses for web development. And
Is that it? I mean, no, that's a good start. So,
yeah, I guess that's it.
Obviously
and I got a job.
What do you do for work?
I'm a web developer.
Got it. So obviously, in the introduction, we were talking a little bit about debt. So let's talk a little bit about that first, I think. Why do you have that school debt? We kind of mentioned also in the intro that without a 4-year degree piece. So maybe give a little bit of background there on why you would have school debt despite not necessarily having a 4-year degree.
Maybe some bad decisions.
Okay. That's all good.
So like I said, I started in community college, and I was going for one degree, and that was criminal justice, and that was kind of paid for because I was able to pay for that as I went. Yeah. And then, like, after 2 years, I was like, "Fuck, I don't want to do this. Let me try something that I'm actually interested in, or something that I can utilize, some skills that I'm interested in." And that was web design at the time, because I was like doing it outside of that. And then I found like an online school because I convinced myself that I probably wouldn't learn in a learning environment, and I can do this on my own sort of thing.
Right.
So I started taking these online classes at this school called Full Sail, and it was really expensive. Yeah. They're really expensive. They make you take out, well, they don't make you take out the loans, but you take out a lot of loans to go to the school. Right. And that's kind of what I did. And about maybe a year and a half, close to 2 years into it, I was like, I'm not learning anything that I can't learn on my own. Right. And I'm paying these motherfuckers like a ridiculous amount of money. Yeah. And so I dropped out. And that's kind of what I was left with.
Gotcha. How far along did you get?
How far along in my courses did I get?
Was that? I mean, it's a 2-year, 4-year program?
It's I think it's a 3.5-year program.
And
I got 2 years in. 2
years in. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if I actually were to go through the whole program, it would have been a crazy, like a triple digit number.
Yeah, in terms of the debt.
6 figures, yeah.
Even with that, though, do you feel like that would have been a leg up, or do you feel like it ultimately...
Not at all.
It wouldn't have made any difference, really?
Not at all.
Yeah. So live life with no regrets, obviously, but in terms of like looking back on that, that's something that maybe in retrospect you could have taken a different approach or something.
Totally, dude. Totally. Yeah. Okay. Live life with no regrets, but I definitely should have fucking not done that.
Yeah. No, that's... I think a lot of people probably are in a similar boat. Mm-hmm. I know people who I work with who are doing really well in the business world, but they went to medical school or something like that because their parents were doctors and they kind of thought that that's what they were supposed to do, and then they got there and realized that they hated it. And obviously medical school is not cheap, so some of them did. I know I work with people who did that kind of same sort of thing. Like they did the 4-year school and then they started to go to grad school and they're like, nope, this isn't for me. I'm going to do sales instead of be a surgeon. So give me an idea of like, obviously at this point where you and I have had a lot of conversations about this, but what got you interested in financial independence? Why now that you're 27 have you gotten more into the idea of kind of taking the reins of your finances and pursuing financial independence as kind of a long-term goal?
Okay. I think just like, you know what? Like browsing Reddit, and then like personal finance came up on RL.
Right.
And I was like, oh, what's this? So I looked into it, and then I've always had like the subconscious thought that I probably need to get better at my expenses. And so I started browsing personal finance as it came on. And then from there, like I looked into like FI and it just started to kind of like branch into these different sections. And I was like, like I think I could do this stuff.
Yeah.
Or at least if I just try at it, then I'll be better off than not trying at it. But to like, yeah, I think that's kind of what started it. And and understanding the amount of debt I had, I actually had, and I was like, like this is a lot.
Like you knew the amount, but maybe you hadn't given it a lot of thought in terms of how long it would take, or what do you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, I've just made payments. Yeah. And that was it. Like I just made payments and accepted it.
Do you know how long it would take at just minimum payments?
I think I calculated it out, and I think I'd be done in like September of like 2027.
Okay. Well, that's not too bad.
No, it's not bad at all.
Yeah, it's not too bad. Okay. As far as personal...
But that's a long time for some people, and they see that and they're like, that could be a long time.
I mean, that's 11 years from now.
Yeah.
And you started paying this off 3 years ago probably, right?
Well, initially, I was broke, man. I wasn't really thinking about it.
Yeah.
So I deferred the payments and...
Are there penalties that come with that, or?
Some.
Yeah.
Some. But I've been solidly paying them for about 2.5 years. Okay. I think the first 6 months was rough for me.
Yeah. What would you say your personal goals are as far as, obviously we've already talked about that that financial independence piece, but what do you want to achieve, and do you have some idea of like the timeline in terms of reaching those goals?
I have no timeline on it. I know that I want to achieve kind of being at least zero again.
Yeah.
I want to be zero. I don't want to have any debt.
Yeah.
I think that's my main goal right now, is just to be at zero and not be in the negative.
Right.
Yeah.
So at this point, let's go ahead and get into the numbers.
Okay.
I know you've prepped some of this for me. So, so in terms of sharing your exact income, I know we've talked about this. I'm personally a little less comfortable with it than even you are yourself. So I think it's sufficient to like provide a range or say that you're making less than a certain amount. I think that that's appropriate just for privacy purposes.
Okay.
I think it's sufficient to say that you're making less than $50,000 a year.
Yes.
And living in the Bay Area.
Yes.
So obviously about as high cost of living as it gets, though you're not in San Francisco itself. So I think, is it fair to leave it at that? Is there anything that you really feel like you should add or take from that?
I'm making less than 50, but I'm making more than that bottom bracket of 37.
Okay, gotcha. So you're 30, that being like poverty line type.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So that's enough for anyone listening to get a picture of where you're at. So in terms of debt, we've been talking a little bit about it. You kind of alluded to not six figures, but how much school debt are you in?
Total school debt is $54,501.84.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
What was that when you started? Just out of curiosity, what do you know?
I think it was like when I started paying it off.
Yeah.
I think it was like 55.6 or something.
So is this just because the interest rates are so high on some of these that it hasn't chipped away? See, that's the cycle. This is one of the reasons that I wanted to do this kind of an episode.
And I calculated this number. I'm like, damn, like I've been making all these payments and like nothing.
I've paid 10 grand into this.
I basically
I'm just on a treadmill of
chiseling.
Yeah. Okay. So it's good then that there's kind of thinking about it and taking control of it. Now I know we talked a little bit about this. You were involved in like a motorcycle accident a couple months ago that didn't help that situation that much.
No.
So in terms of credit card debt, same question. How much, and maybe a little context on why and kind of your feelings about that situation, because it's not too much. When we talked about it, the number is relatively small.
No,
it's pretty tackleable.
It's under 5. It's the total for that is 35.92, 65.
Yeah, so
$3,592.
Yeah. Okay. And what were those expenses, and why did you feel like you kind of had to charge it to a card?
I didn't have the money to cover the tow and the repairs and stuff.
Yeah.
So I felt like the card was the only option at that moment.
Yeah.
And I think it is also a factor of my kind of laissez-faire attitude. So I left my bike at the towing yard for a few days, called them up, realized that they were fucking charging me $70 a day. Oh. And I was like, fuck, now I gotta take care of this. So it's like these little snowball effects that happen.
Yeah. I didn't know that was a thing.
Man. So if you ever get a car towed, get it out of there as fast as you can.
It's good to know.
And, doing stuff like Ubering to work and back, or Ubering to work.
Because of not having a vehicle. Yeah. Fortunately, you were not injured in any real serious way in this
situation.
Not at all.
I mean,
you pretty much, you basically slammed into the back of a
I flew head first into the rear window of a lady's SUV. And I pulled myself out. My bike flipped over behind me. And, now it's sitting in my garage.
What's that?
Now it's sitting in my garage.
Yeah. And so were you at about an hour after that happened for a band practice. This guy, he's sitting down. He's like, hey, sorry, I'm not going to be as energetic as usual. What happened? And our singer's looking at me. He's like, Steve just crashed like off of his motorcycle. And I'm like, what? When? Steve just like an hour ago. I was like, dude, we don't need to be having this practice right now. I don't know. It just kind of goes to show you who Steve is. But on the plus side, I mean, you were relatively okay. You just weren't like...
Yeah. I think I had like possibly a mild concussion.
Yeah.
Or as mild as it can be,
Okay. Well.
That's funny.
I see you've got a note here, but I wanted to ask if there's any other debt other than the credit card.
The debt of the soul on this planet that I am.
Yeah. The debt that all humans...
Yeah, the debt that all humans have.
That's another topic for another day, I feel
like.
Yeah,
for sure.
So that would make the total debt about, what, just mental math there, 58K.
Yeah, 58K. Close to that.
Yeah. Okay. So give me an idea of some of your expenses, like rent, obviously in the Bay Area, but not in San Francisco, so it's not too bad, and you're living with a couple other people. So share a little bit about that situation, what your monthly expenses, kind of the unavoidable expenses like food, insurances, things like that. Just share kind of a little bit about what those numbers look like.
Okay, so currently, like you said, I live in a house in the Bay Area with 5 other students. from the grad school that I work at.
Yeah.
So that kind of helps keep the rent pretty low. Currently, I pay $670 a month for a room in a house.
Okay.
Other expenses, like for the month, include my student loans, something like my cell phone, any credit card payments, water, utilities, groceries. Those are like the solid, you're paying this every month sort of thing.
Do you have some idea what that totals out to? $400 or $500 a month kind of thing.
All the student loans and stuff?
No, without the student loans.
The utilities?
Yeah, utilities and food.
And food?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
around
cell and stuff like that.
Yeah, around $400 or $500. Yeah, because the cell's like $120 a month.
Right.
Food is like $50 a week. Sometimes every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Depending on how like
You made $50 last 2 weeks.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
It's either that or I'm convincing myself otherwise.
This is why you got to look at your
right. Yeah.
That was the thing I figured out. I talked about this in another episode that I think will be coming up after this one. But when I looked at my expenses, I was like, oh, for sure, I spend $400 a month on food and drinks. And I think July of this year or something like that, I spent like $800. I was like, oh,
that's good. You can put numbers down all you want, and you can.
You got to actually track.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay, so kind of in total, we're looking at like little over $1,000, 1.2K a month, something like that. So that's really good for reference for anyone who's listening who might not be from the Bay Area. I live less than a mile from Steve in a 2-bedroom apartment, and obviously because I'm only sharing with one other person, just the rent portion is about that much before utilities and my car and everything like that. So my monthly expenses are a little bit higher than yours, partly because I'm spending like $500-$600 a month more on rent. So good on you on that piece. That helps a lot. That's $6,000 a year.
Yeah.
More than that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So awesome. Vices. Anything that you feel like you spend more if you want to. It's up to you. That's your own privacy situation, so it's up to you. Any things that you feel like you spend a little bit more on than you should or could, and do you care that you're spending that on it? Because I know there's some things like I like to spend on some things that I'm like, yeah, I could spend less on that, but it brings me some sort of enjoyment. So
okay, so I do art and I make music, and just like with those two things, you can spend a ridiculous absorbent amount of money.
Yeah, like music's insane.
Yeah,
yeah.
Especially like getting into like recording stuff. Like you'll see like, oh this microphone is like $300. That microphone's like $1,000.
Yeah.
So I think it's stuff like that, like the big purchases that I'll feel like, oh, I've always wanted this, and I know that I'll like use it.
Yeah.
So spend the money on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like upgrading my guitar. Yeah. Like parts for my guitar, there's those things
for sure
that definitely add up over time. Art supplies, paper and shit. Like they're small purchases, but when you're doing it, like
it can add up.
Yeah,
yeah. I think music's definitely that's a tough one for sure.
Yeah,
I know. Like as a drummer, all the pieces, like the hardware costs $100. Like the stand to put a cymbal on, like not even a thing that you play, just a thing to keep up the thing that you play. It can be $100 if you want a decent one.
I was just looking at like sound treating for the garage, for the den.
As opposed to cardboard.
Yeah, as opposed to just cardboard boxes on the walls.
Right.
And it first started with like looking at a company that like makes it for you, and it's like $120 for like one little panel,
like foam panel.
Yeah, and then I'm like, all right, well, what do these guys do to like make that?
Right.
So I started looking at like the things
the
that
materials.
So I'm like, okay, so now I have
DIY it.
Yeah, DIYing it, but I'm buying like yards and yards of burlap sack. I got fiberglass panels over here.
Are you buying that?
I'm going to. It's like it's going to be around $200, but I get like 6 panels out of it, right? So I see like some value in that.
Yeah.
So that I guess that's kind of why I justify those purposes.
You spend enough time at it, and like you're in a creative line of work.
Yeah.
So I think those are kind of justifiable. I think for me personally, I started when I started playing guitar. I started on like a $200 guitar because it was cheap and I was a student. And it was just kind of like I didn't know if I was going to stick to it. And when I ended up really liking it and like writing more music and stuff like that, as soon as I started working, I got my first commission check. Like 3 months into the job, about that. And immediately, one of the first things I went and bought, I sold my old guitar for about half of what I paid for it. So not too bad. A couple of years later, got $100, and then bought like a $500 guitar. So nothing like super fancy, but that is like one of my least regretted $500 spent. Like that's, if I had to liquidate a lot of the stuff in my apartment, I could get rid of a lot of things, but like I would not want to get rid of my guitar. So that, there's a value to that $500 expenditure here and there for music. It's just it's unfortunate that it's not like $20.
My issues is like I'll get like a $200 guitar, and then I'll like
trick it out
and put parts on it that are like way more expensive than the guitar itself.
Like a shitty guitar that has like thousands of dollars of upgrade.
Like this electronic kit was like $150. The bridge was like $150. Like already that's the guitar price.
Right, for sure. Cool. So that's Vices. Do you operate under any like specific budgets? So you kind of alluded to it with your food, like saying you try to spend $50 a month, but it didn't sound like it was that strict or anything. Like, do you do anything to really monitor specific amounts each month to specific categories?
Nothing like that. Nothing like, I just spent $53 and blah 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 cents and typing it into an app or something like that. I didn't do anything like that. Okay. I said, I kind of alluded it to that because like 1 week I'll spend $37. Right. And the next week I'll be like, okay, so last week I spent $37.
An extra $13 to spend this week.
Yeah. Like last night I spent $70, but the week before I only spent $30.
Yeah. Gotcha. Last night? Like going out?
Groceries. Groceries going out.
I spent, what did I spend last night? I spent almost $50 because I got food and we went out to some bars. Mm-hmm. So like, it was fun. It's kind of worthwhile. It was a social thing with some friends and stuff like that. But what's that beeping?
I don't know.
All right. So I know that you've got a 401k.
Yes.
Which I was really happy to hear. Because obviously that's a great tool for building some wealth. So in terms of your ongoing contribution,
that's the first thing I did.
Okay.
Like that's kind of like, okay, this is how I'm starting this journey of saving.
Yeah.
Let me throw
Had you done really any research into it, or you just kind of knew like this is kind of how people do it?
So I was talking to my coworker and he was telling me about 401ks, and this is right around the time when I got really interested in maybe trying to do stuff like this.
Like a year or two ago?
I started it January.
Beginning of this year.
Yeah, the beginning of this year.
Okay.
Oh, wow. I feel like it's been way longer than that, but it hasn't.
Okay. Well, you're about to share what the value is in that, but dude, that's pretty solid.
Yeah.
It's a pretty okay. So your contribution amount to that 401k
is 12%.
12%. Obviously that's all like traditional 401k, so it's a pre-tax amount that's going in there that'll get taxed down the road, but it can grow tax deferred. So I don't know exactly where you sit on the on like the income brackets, but that'll help your taxes. Like you probably haven't even really seen a tax return yet with the 401k involved in it, like to an extent. Like I mean, you started at the beginning of this year.
Yeah. I mean, I just pulled up. I have my W-2 up right here.
Okay. Did it bump you into a lower tax bracket? Because a 12% contribution, like it's pretty solid. The total, you've got a note here, the total value in all retirement accounts. So that's just a 401k?
Yes.
Total value, yeah.
Yes.
So that's it's almost 10 grand.
Yeah.
That's pretty good, man.
Yeah.
For a year.
Cool.
It is. 10 grand was my goal the first year that I was working. That was what I thought I was going to do before I was interested in FI and all this stuff. My whole goal was to make 10 grand, and I was making a little bit more than where you're at. Not like a ton more, but definitely more to where like I ended up able to save a little bit more than that. But that was my goal. Was like 1 year out, I thought that was going to be a good place to start. So
awesome.
Dude,
I guess I'm on the right track.
You are. You definitely are. So we've talked about this before too. My only concern is that you have some loans that are at a really high interest rate.
Yes.
And the credit card debt. One of the credit cards is at one of those insane like 20+% credit card debt thing. So you're not going to beat that. The market right now, great market right now as we're doing this like late 2016. bull market in the U.S., but you're still not going to outpace that debt. So that's my only concern with that. It's great that you're doing that. It's going to save you on taxes, and in the long run, it's going to turn out to be more. So I'm glad that you're doing that contribution.
Yeah.
It's just we got to start thinking about that debt too.
Cool.
Awesome. And then savings accounts, other investments, things like that. I know that you are a little bit of a Bitcoin nerd, and I've tried to kind of convince you to liquidate that into paying down on.
Have you? I thought we said we were just going to leave it there.
That's how you remember it.
Really?
Yeah.
No shit. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want me? Oh, well. Yeah.
No, I mean, it's up to you, man. Look, the reality, like, you sent me a little thing on Bitcoin the day after the election, and I was like, oh man, all the markets are down right after hours.
And Bitcoin's up 30%.
Because everyone's like, oh, this is not affected by the actual market.
Bitcoin is the market.
Bitcoin is its own living, breathing thing. I admittedly don't understand Bitcoin that much, and I want to do an episode on it, so I'll watch that video that you shared with me and do some more research. But how much do you have in your just savings and checking accounts, and then in Bitcoin?
So currently in one checking account I have about $460. In another I have like $30, and in one I have almost $1,100. Okay. That one's, I don't really count it because it's a rent account. Yeah. So there's constantly money in and moving out. Right. And in a savings account I have about 150. And in Bitcoin I have $420. Yeah. And I
420.
Yeah, 420. We live in California, so it's legal.
Right. You have a legal.
It's legal to have.
You have a legal amount of money in your 401k or your Bitcoin. So that's interesting because you've got a good amount in that 401k, but not that much in cash. So when you run into that emergency, you put it on the credit card.
That's kind of
So maybe I mean, this is something that you can think about, and we can talk about this on or off the podcast. But maybe start thinking about kind of doing a little bit less in your 401k, but paying the same amount that you would normally put in, automatically deferring that into a savings account, so that you can start to grow that liquid piece. Because that's kind of first things first, is pay down really high interest loans and build a bit of an emergency fund to when things like crashing into the back of a minivan happen.
Oh, so you mean I'm not supposed to just live paycheck to paycheck my entire life, but still saving a little bit?
I mean, the thing is that you're saving well. That's what's fun. It's like you should have that available to you. Mm-hmm. I just feel like, because you again, with what you're working with, you're doing well in that regard. So that's something to think about. But yes, that is what I mean. You're not supposed to live. I mean, that's a lifestyle choice, but I know that that's not how you want to. There's some people who don't care. They're
right.
To paycheck. Yeah. It's like I'm a bohemian nomad, and this is what I do. But that's not necessarily what you want to do.
I definitely don't want to live paycheck to paycheck.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Side hustles. I know that one of the things that that I love about you, like as a friend, as a human being, is that you put in time beyond what you're doing. Like you're serious about getting better at what you do and doing more of what you do and learning new things. People often, I think there's a lot of people who kind of, oh, woe is me, I'm paycheck to paycheck because I have this shitty job, and they're not actually doing any extra work to get themselves into a different position or to make more money. You do. There are times where I'll text you to hang out on a Saturday or on a Thursday night or something, and you're like, nah, I've got some stuff I need to work on that's due. So talk a little bit about that, some of your side hustles, and why you're doing that, kind of what you want those to turn into, I guess. Okay.
So currently I work for a web developer on the East Coast. He kind of throws me jobs every month, little tasks every once in a while, and I bill him for that stuff. And that's been pretty cool. September I made about $450 extra. October $300.
Nice.
November I still haven't billed him yet, but it's currently in around $200.
Okay. And that's just that one thing.
Yeah. This is one guy that I messaged him on Reddit.
Right.
And he's like, hey, you want to try this stuff? And if it works out, it works out. Yeah. So we started doing that. And through him, he actually he introduced me to other people. And they're giving me some work too. Yeah.
When did that? I don't think we talked about that.
Yeah, I didn't. We didn't?
I don't know. I don't remember. I mean, no, I don't think so.
Yeah, he introduced me to another web developer also around his area, and he works with a bunch of doctors out there.
Okay.
And they just need some content stuff to get done, and I do that stuff pretty quickly. Nice. So he's like, hey, here's some more work.
Awesome.
So there's that.
Cool.
And then there's these other things that I do with like people in the Bay Area. Like I work with that guy Ben, helping him record and stuff.
Logos and art and stuff like that from time to time.
From time to time, and those can $100 here, $100 there. Nothing too crazy with those. But the Ben stuff, like I don't get paid for that. Yeah. It's just I feel like
developing that skill.
Yeah, and meeting the people, man. I feel like
networking
is a big thing for me because school wasn't.
Right.
So I feel like if I meet the people that could help me eventually or could lead me to some opportunity, then it'll just further my career in that path sort of thing.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think most of us, if you look at people who do well in like that career and the financial sense of success, which is some mic problems. Those people who do well, they're kind of it's a minority of people who are actually creating something themselves and being extremely innovative. It's a majority of us are like that want to do something successfully or to do end up in that position eventually. A lot of those people are hitching their wagon to somebody who is doing something else. So I think that's
and that's not a bad thing. I feel like
no,
you're just kind of building. For me, I think it's about building a community of people you want to continue to do work with.
Yeah.
And that helps you kind of bring everybody around you up as you go, because as they go, they'll go up and other people go up.
Yeah.
It's just like
tides raise all ships.
Yeah, exactly. I love that analogy.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. I mean, I think, again, that's a situation that I think 99% of people are in and should be in. Mm-hmm. I don't personally want to be a CEO of anything.
Fuck that.
We've talked about it before too. Like I watch CEOs. My desk at my office is literally right next to our CEO, and it's like
their middle name is stress.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, it's a whole different
it's a different animal. It's a different lifestyle.
It's a whole different thing. Yeah. And traveling internationally all the time, and just you're just kind of 24/7 thinking about it, and you're not doing other things. Like that's what you do. Mm-hmm. If you have a family and some kids and stuff, maybe you spend some time with them, but you aren't like getting good at.
You're not in a band.
You're not playing music. Yeah, you're not good at sport. I mean, some people are, but everyone that as far as the people that I know personally who are CEOs of decent sized companies and previous CEOs I've worked with and stuff, like, no, they're not. That's their whole life.
Yeah.
I think it's a very, very small amount of the population who's desires that or is capable of that, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm 100% in that group too. Mm-hmm. Trying to find those good people in the network and hitching wagons to each other and letting that tide bring us all up.
Yeah.
Just in terms of action items, what do you feel like your priorities are with your finances? Obviously, we've got the debt. We talked about that. We've got savings accounts. We've got 401k that. In that amount of time is awesome. Bitcoin. We've got a couple of different things going on here. What do you want to do? Where do you want to start? Like, where do you feel like you're prioritizing?
I think I'd definitely be a little more disciplined with my credit card.
Okay.
Because I still use it sometimes, Mm-hmm. $5 lunch here or there, stuff like that.
Right.
I have been putting more money into paying the credit card off.
Awesome.
So that's cool.
Good.
But I guess after today, maybe allocating.
The look on your face, you're like that's definitely like I have all the right letters. For some reason, I'm putting the stress on the word in the wrong location.
Allocating.
Yes.
The funds in a different way, I think, is maybe a next action step.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Just generally, how are you feeling? Like,
I feel honestly, I feel fucking awesome, bro.
Dude, that's what I like to hear. This is one of the things, like, as anyone who's listening to this right now, as you get to know Steve, you're going to see that he is like one of the most optimistic, kind of almost always positive kind of guys. Like you can see things in a realistic way, but like that's something that I need more of, and just having that energy around makes it a lot easier for someone like me who's like I can get fixated on that negative shit and fuck. This, like a tiny little thing sucks and your like, whole day's ruined. But Steve's kind of like, hey man, we're all alive.
Yes.
Like, look what we get to do. We get to play music. How beautiful. And the sun's out. And you're like...
The fact that I'm $50,000 in debt is just in the back of my mind.
Right. It's a living thing. And you would be a little happier without that.
Completely.
Yeah.
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 But it's true, man. I mean, I think stress is the number one killer.
Yeah.
And there's shit that we see as stress.
Yeah.
And we don't even think it's stress.
Yeah.
But it's there, and like it just builds and builds and builds and builds and builds, and then you have high blood pressure, and then you have a fucking heart attack.
That's the reality. I mean,
yeah, it's totally and that's not what I want to fucking do.
Yeah,
I would like to live a comfortable life.
Right. That's
and just be happy.
Yeah.
Doing things.
Cool. And so I think you're already able to do that, even despite the debt. You're already able to do that to a pretty good extent, and so obviously just getting more and more control of that is going to be, I think, it's only going to go up from there.
Remember we talked about this before, like we've created our paths and we're seeking like the other side of the path. Like I've found all this creative stuff that I like to do,
right.
And I'm satisfied in it. Yeah. I'm satisfied in that aspect of my life. Yeah. But there's also this, like, I need to be a little more responsible in my financial aspect.
Right.
And we just did it an opposite way. You wanted to be more solid in your finances, and then you wanted to find creative outlets.
Right. And we came from different backgrounds, too, which, that plays a role, I think, too. I mean, my parent, it was like there was no question that I was going to go to a 4-year school, whether I liked it or not. If you were giving me a choice at that time at 18, if you were like, money's not an object.
I want to tour the world.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to be a
I'm gonna be a rock star. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, who cares? Like, I'm going to go do whatever. But no, I was kind of in that boat of like, I'm going to be a lawyer, or maybe I'm going to do this or that. I wasn't sure. I thought maybe even up until I actually got hired at a job, I thought I'm going to go into marketing. Not where I've ended up. Still could be a place that I go, but point being, like, that was sort of, like, my dad was in marketing and tech. I grew up in the Silicon Valley. Like, that was what I saw. My parents just culturally coming from the family that I did and everything, like, they started saving for our education was number one. It was like, I couldn't leave the house unless I had my stuff done. And I was involved in things outside of school that I didn't want to do, but it was like, it's reps and math kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's a different background. So,
it is.
So yeah, like that was kind of, you're right, to your point, right? Like, we did kind of do it in opposite directions where, like, you and I have the exact same interests, basically.
Yeah.
Like, it's one of the reasons that I think we get along and we're able to do things like this podcast. Like,
but you started on one end and I started on the other.
You started on the creative end and you're trying to kind of get to the business end and the stability end. And I started on this, like, this business and stability end, and I'm trying to exercise my creativity and do things that actually, bring me more satisfaction in life. You and I can meet in the middle.
Yeah.
I think
that's how we work.
Things to work on. I feel like I have like a creativity debt. I have debt to the community kind of thing. Like,
right.
I've been focused on myself kind of. So it's a different, different approach. But cool. What do you feel like in general, also in your life? Where do you feel like, other than financially with the debt, where do you feel like you can improve, or do you feel like you can improve anything?
Definitely be a little healthier.
Yeah. You started biking to work.
Yeah, which is awesome.
He's a cycler now.
I'm a cyclist?
Cyclist.
That's been the fucking running joke for the past like month and a half, dude, and I've killed it. I've killed it completely at work. I say it all the time. They're probably going to be listening to this, but I say it all the time. And like in my head after I say it, I'm like, damn it, why did I say that?
You've killed it like the joke is dead now? Or you've killed it like killing a room the way a comedian kills it? Like that joke killed? Or you killed the joke?
I killed the joke. I definitely killed the joke. When you hear it about 2 times a day,
right,
or like 3 times a day, you killed the joke.
I tried to invite Steve to go biking, just to like go bike around. He's like, why? He like, really didn't understand. He's like, for what? I'm like, hour in for exercise, you're like, I only go to work. I do my 10 miles 5 days a week. I go to work. I come back from work. Like, what is this nonsense? Biking
Who
for
bikes?
pleasure?
Who bikes outside of going commuting?
He's like, where do you want to go? I'm like, anywhere. You're like, I'm good. It's not.
One thing about me is I definitely like to be a homebody and like hang out.
Yeah, you're chill dude.
I'm a chill dude.
Chill dude.
But no, exercising more.
Yeah.
And I found that with work and
right, because you said like you don't really enjoy you don't enjoy the process of going to the gym and like, lifting weights. Like that's not something that you don't get much.
Yeah, and I've tried to do that so many times in my life, and it's like I'll do it for like 2 weeks and be like, why the do I want to do this? This is stupid. I don't want to sit here and like move my arms up and down, and pick up weights and put them down.
Sure.
I pick things up and I put them down. But I found that when I got into that accident and I was paying all this money for Uber, I'm like, well, I'll just get a bicycle.
Kill two birds with one stone.
Boom.
Yeah.
So it was convenient.
Yeah. And now you're kind of getting exercise in a way that like
I'm eating healthier.
You sort of don't have a choice. You're eating.
I've been doing that. So just adding the bike is just like this little one more
extra
step
little
into
thing. Like now you're gonna have ripped quads.
Dude, my.
We can talk about your quads right now.
Yeah. The first week of biking was probably the most intense week of my entire life.
Like in general or physically?
Physically, dude.
I was gonna say, that's weird.
My legs felt like jelly after the second day.
Yeah.
And it just didn't stop.
But you just pushed through, and now your body's adapted to it, right?
Now I'm a cyclist.
Nice. The real deal. I mean, look, that's better than nothing, and you're finding a way that like you kind of enjoy. Like you said, you feel good. Like I remember you were kind of like glowing about it. You're like, man, like
it's nice to like get up and then do 5 miles, and you get to work, and you're just like breathing heavily, but it feels good.
Yeah,
because you get endorphins release and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, you're supposed to exercise.
Yeah. So it literally feels good.
Right.
And you start off the day that way.
Right.
And then
feel, the first thing you did today was be productive.
Right. And then you end the day that way too when you're going home. Right. And you're like, okay, so like killed it today already.
Even if you did nothing else, even if you accomplished nothing else, you're like, I biked 10 miles.
Yeah, I biked 10 miles, killed it. I'm gonna go do things now. Yeah.
That's funny. That's great. And you gotta find ways to That's like we're veering off of the Steve Sunday subject matter, but this is still consistent with the whole podcast. So I think it's worth talking about it. It's you got to find ways that you enjoy it. Mm-hmm. I enjoy it personally. I really don't like running that much. Mm-hmm. Occasionally, like I went for a run last night. It felt really nice to do that every so often. But like if you try to set me up to like prepare
run
for
every day
marathon, oh no, thank you. And running on a treadmill is like even worse. Like I'd rather at least run somewhere and. And then running's like kind of high impact. Like I already have like my lower back's not great. My knees I have the knees of a 50-year-old probably. And so like if I do run long distances, it doesn't feel that good to me anyway. But I enjoyed martial arts. But then when I got injured and I couldn't do that anymore, it was like I was really missing something from not getting exercise. I was used to having that like couple hours of intense exercise a day. So I switched to going to the gym, and I really enjoy that. But I enjoy lifting weights with my lower body more than with my upper body. I'm kind of like you. Like I don't like to sit there with like curling. Like I don't just huge biceps and just like curling heavy weight. Like, I'll do that with low weight just like as a maintenance thing.
Yeah.
Love doing high weight with my legs. I think I feel so good afterwards. Just physically feel good. Feel like I accomplished something, kind of like you said too. Like I get home and it's like 8:00, but I'm like I'm gonna cook myself a dinner.
Yeah. You kind of get this like. Almost like a pep in your
step.
Yeah, it's easier. It's easier to do stuff.
Yeah.
After you've already done something like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of research, not just in the exercise space, but like making your bed in the morning. They say that one of the great benefits of making your bed in the morning is that the first thing you've done in the morning is some small productive task, like you put away some dishes or you made the bed, and that totally sets the tone for the rest of your day. I am so lazy in the morning. I don't make my bed.
Neither do I. I think I make it maybe like 2 out of the 7 days a week.
Oh, really?
Maybe.
I think I do 2 out of the 365 days a year. Like when I wash some sheets and blankets and stuff when they start to smell like the dogs.
Yeah.
And then
I'm sorry, Mama. I never meant to hurt you. I never meant to make you cry.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Awesome. I think we're getting close to wrapping it up here. Just in general, do you have any like questions or concepts that you feel like we could talk about here, or anything that you've learned that you want to share, or something that maybe you want me to try to fumble around attempting to answer terribly in the space of the finances? I think just to bring it full circle here.
Okay.
Anything that came to mind recently, or
dude, is there any advice that you want to give me on the episode right now?
Yeah.
To go forward, and so we can have some action steps for the next Steve Sunday,
right.
you know?
Yeah, we've talked about this before, and if you have debt, there's sort of two popular ways to handle that.
Right.
The first is the one that I recommended to you, which is to basically start with your highest interest debt and get that knocked out first. So in your case, it's your credit card debt. One of those cards is at 23% or something like that.
Yeah.
Credit cards shouldn't be allowed to do this. I think it should just be illegal. It's such a ridiculous system. And even most states have usury laws that don't allow, like, if you get a loan, a regular loan, they're not supposed to exceed like 10% or something like that in most states, that kind of thing. But apparently credit cards are just like, they make their own rules. So that's the first thing is like...
You make your own rules too, man.
Me?
Yes.
All people.
We all make our own rules.
All people. You're all... Yes. So if even if it's a smaller amount of debt, which kind of works in your favor, because the second way to go about tackling debt that people usually, I mean, obviously there's a couple ways, but these are the two popular ways. So the first one, start with that highest interest debt. The second one is kind of talking a little more to like the psychological aspect. So if you're somebody who is really bogged down by having debt, which in your case you're not really, so you may as well go like you still live life happily, like even despite some of the debt. So in your case, I don't think this is the approach, but there is definitely a psychological aspect to being in debt. Some people are really, really stressed out by having anything owed, even if it's like, oh, I owe my friend $20, like they can't sleep at night, you know? So if you're that kind of person, there's a lot of people that are like that. If you're that kind of person, then there is a value in tackling your smallest loans first. So not smallest in terms of the interest, but just regardless of interest, the smallest amount first.
To get that mental...
Exactly, to get the mental, like, it's like a to-do list, like crossing things off a to-do list. You're like, I have
Same as making the bed in the morning.
Yeah, kind of like that.
Same
like
concept.
You get the small wins, and you feel like you get that self-efficacy. So if you're somebody who doesn't feel like that confidence about your financial situation, and you don't, and you do have some sort of, like, it affects your life day to day to have debts in multiple places, then there is definitely a benefit just to get you in the right mindset, to keep you in the right mindset of just let's tackle the smallest ones first, even if they're like 4% loans or something. If you owe $1,000 on your car or something like that, and then that's the smallest amount you owe. There's a benefit to getting it out of the way, so you're like, I don't have to think about it. Just something off my shoulders. So those are kind of the two ways to do it. Again, for you in your situation, because you're not really, it doesn't mess up your life on a day-to-day basis by any stretch. Just tackle that high interest stuff first. Some of your loans are like federal loans that are smaller interest. Like those just make the minimum payments until they're gone.
Those, little side note, I have noticed that those large loans, the federal ones, have gone down way faster than the other ones.
Yeah, because they're not accruing 11%.
Yeah.
Because some of yours, they were from New Jersey, and they might have different laws. I think in California, it's a little less, like the amount of interest that you can charge for a loan. But you got them while you were in New Jersey, and maybe they have a slightly higher cap to that. So I know
the fixed rate. I got the fixed rate,
but it's like 11 or 13% or something like that. So it's still kind of high. Like,
private loans.
Yeah, those private loans.
Can't do anything about it.
The federal loans are kind of like, if you're at 3 or 4%, like my car is at like 2.8% or something, and most mortgages right now are somewhere in the threes, like 3.4 or something like that. Like those are small enough interest rates that like you can probably beat that rate. You could beat that rate in like some bonds. You know what I mean? So
it's about beating the interest.
Exactly, beating your ability to make more than the interest costs in the long term.
Okay.
If you're somebody who hates investing, or you just feel like you're not able, or I mean, there's some people who are like ultra paranoid and they keep all their money in cash. Not a great thing to do, but again,
you can keep it in Bitcoin.
Well, I think some of those people are like super risk averse. Like I'm risk averse, but not that risk averse. There's some people who will shy away from that in all regards. But if you are that kind of person, and there's absolutely nothing that can convince you to invest that money, then you got to start with the you got to just pay down all your debts.
Yeah.
But again, in your case, I think let's start with paying down the highest interest. So the credit card debt and some of those higher interest loans that contribute more to those. Don't worry as much about the investing. Like, let's keep up the 401k for sure, but maybe decrease the contribution so you can have a couple $100 extra a month to put down on that credit card debt, so that it doesn't, like you said, like you don't end up in that cycle, you don't end up on that treadmill, and you're not trying to catch up to it.
Cool.
So that's the first thing. And then kind of simultaneously, I think starting to build a bit of an emergency fund so that once you do knock that debt out, you can, the credit card debt piece, then you can simultaneously also be like, look, I've got at least a couple grand in savings, and if there's an emergency, I can handle it. I don't have to worry about that.
I don't have to put it on my credit card.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah. That's
totally.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that, for me personally, that I've noticed, like in saving, that I enjoy the most about just accumulating money. Like, just having it makes me more happy than spending it on stuff a lot of the time, because I have that sense of like, if tomorrow everything crashes, the markets crash, some crazy thing happens, or something happens at the company that I'm at and they're going to cut my role, I don't have to worry about it. I'm like, look, I'll get a severance and I can file for unemployment and I'll be right back on it. And I've got enough saved that I can live for X number of months, and I know where I can cut down my expenses. So for me, that's been like psychologically just the most valuable thing about saving any amount. And I don't have that much saved up, but enough that like
you have enough to not worry about how you're going to pay rent for the next 3 months or the next 6 months. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I can still put food on the table and still keep a roof over my head if things do hit the fan.
Yeah.
So I think there's such a value in that too. So I think those for me, if I were in your shoes, those would be my 2 steps, my 2 action items.
And I guess another question for you.
Yeah.
Do we want to see like tangible improvements, or what are we trying to do? I guess it's what I'm trying to do, maybe.
I mean, that's up to you.
Yeah. What are the goals for maybe each episode? Is there a goal? Is it do we just kind of check in? And
you've talked about this yourself, like this. I maybe should have even mentioned this at the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
This was this segment was your idea. You were the one who was kind of like, it could be cool to share it.
Yeah.
And I was like, you don't have to, I was kind of like, you don't have to do that. You're like, yeah, but I think like people could benefit from it. And the more I thought about it, I was like, yeah, I like that. And I shared it with some of my friends. They were like, that is a really cool segment.
Cool.
So I think the reason that people recognize it as a really cool segment is to see the ups and maybe the downs. So yeah, I would, as your friend, I would love to see you knock all of this out and get a higher paying job, or get a raise at the one that you've got now, or have one of your side hustles kind of kick in and start making you some extra money. And then you really start paying this down at a much faster rate. And we see those tangible increases. I would love if 4 episodes from now, which would be in about a year or so, if you're like, dude, I'm making double what I was making at the first episode and my debt has been decreased by 25% or something like that. Like if we can see those kinds of like quantitative improvements, just as your friend, I would love to see that. And then also as the kind of the experiment that this is supposed to be, the case study this is supposed to be, it would be such an awesome thing for people to follow. Like, hey, if Steve can do it, there's not a ton of reason that other people can't also do it.
Right.
And then, but at the same time, like, that's also not always how life works. So if it does end up in a situation where maybe there's another emergency and you have to pay down more on the credit card, or something happens, like I was kind of my previous example for myself, like if something happens with your job for whatever reason, and you're out of work for a brief period of time, those things are going to affect your progress financially, but that's okay. That's reality of life. I'm going to run into that. My dad ran into that. Your parents probably ran into that. You've already run into that, and you're trying to do it better. But like, we're all going to run into it again. That's just the reality. There's going to be another market crash. You're going to get laid off if you work in the corporate world. Even if you don't work in the corporate world, there's going to be changes in demand for your skills.
Yeah.
You're going to get older. Maybe you get injured. Car accident, things like that. Like, there's a lot of factors. That like life is hard. Being a human being is hella hard. And
oh man, and life is hard.
It's difficult.
Life is hard. It's beautiful. Yes. Life is everything, and that's crazy.
Yeah. It is. It is crazy, and so that's what I want to see is like even if it's not always ups, that's also the point of it. Is to look at the downs, and I think again one of the reasons that I feel comfortable about doing this episode with you is because you have a great attitude about like getting back on the horse kind of thing. Like I think you're the kind of person who, like, this isn't going to be a thing where we're going to get 3 seasons of Steve
This
Sundays,
kid
like,
literally gained another 20 grand of debt. What are you doing, Steve? What are we talking? Yeah,
you just gave up. You've given up on life. Like that's so not in like the genetic makeup. Yeah, it's not in the blueprint of Steve to like, you know what I mean? Like, I think that's one of the things that's going to make this great is like, even if whether it's good or it's bad, like you're going to keep the kind of the same attitude about it. Okay. You're not going to get your head's not going to get too big, and you're not going to get too downtrodden if things go really well, if things go not as well. So that's what I want to see. I would love to see improvements, and I think that's the idea, ideally. But life isn't always the ideal thing. So
awesome.
Yeah,
I'm completely with you on there, Captain. Podcast captain. Oh, maybe my future boss. I mean, co-pilot. I guess or whatever. Yeah, co-pilot.
Co-pilot.
That's
man.
Cool.
Yeah,
we're flying the plane together, right?
Can't do this without you. Any parting words for this first Steve Sunday episode? It can be anything.
It can be anything?
Oh yeah, it can be anything.
Well, let's mention that today is Thanksgiving.
It is.
It's Happy Thanksgiving, and
people will probably hear this a little while later. We're trying to record a little bit ahead, but Happy Thanksgiving.
I would like to say that just to be thankful for where you are. Let's rewind that.
We're not editing.
No, we're not. I just want to say, let's just be thankful for where we are right now, because, I mean, there's probably people who are listening that are in their own state of minds and doing their own thing and going through their own struggles, and just be thankful. Like, you woke up today. We woke up today. Yeah. We're doing this on a beautiful Thursday in the afternoon. Yeah. There's a stray cat sitting on the fence outside.
You saw a blue jay.
Yeah, I saw a blue jay earlier. Like, that's life.
We're hanging out. We might make some pancakes.
We might make some pancakes after this.
Yeah, dude.
You ever see the Dave Chappelle episode?
What? No, I should watch more of that show.
Dude, he was on SNL a couple weeks ago. Did you see that? His monologue and stuff? Dude, I could not. I was like, that's fucking Dave Chappelle right there. His monologue and talking about, like, it was hysterical.
Yeah, and his stand-up too, like his bits about, like the one where he's the little kid selling, like when his
baby.
His driver brings him like into the cut.
Yeah,
and he's talking about like crackheads skittering around. He sees a little baby over there.
There's a baby outside.
That's a great bit.
Yeah,
it's an awesome bit. Like it's funny no matter how many times you hear it. Awesome, cool. Complete digression.
I don't even know how we got to this point.
May or may not edit that out. I think we just leave that and let the music roll.
We'll see.
Awesome. Yes, be thankful. Happy Thanksgiving. I'm thankful for you, Steve.
I'm thankful for you, Ricky. Thanks for.
We've only known each other for like 4 months.
I still find that like crazy.
That's insane.
Yeah,
you're one of my good friends. I consider you one of my good friends.
Aw, that's cool. So. You're an acquaintance.
That's cool.
No. I have the same sentiment towards you, man. No, for sure.
It's too late.
No, fuck you, Steve.
It's too late to recover. You're not on the show anymore. Yeah. This is the first and last Steve. I will never see Steve again. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening. As always, be sure to subscribe to whatever medium you prefer. There's, of course, the website, thewealthyhealthy.co, if you want to follow the blog. There's probably going to be some extra content there as well. Until next time, be thankful and later.
Do you want to have a cup of coffee so that, like, every once in a while, like, we can talk a little bit, and then, like, you take a sip, you're like, just to add sound effects?
All right, I'll have some coffee. Fuck it.